Okay, we're starting in 1 or so minutes. Give me 1 second.
You.
That's okay, I'll change the feature. Okay, we're starting in 1 or so minutes. Give me 1 second. Okay. Okay, Teka, feel free to share your screen and start whenever you like.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. We are here today with Teka Thomas as part of our digital series for entrepreneurs. We started this digital series in response to all the requests we received with COVID-19 and many concerns that entrepreneurs had. So without further ado, Teka Thomas is here today to talk to us about some legal issues concerning entrepreneurs, and he will take some questions at the end. You can send your questions directly to the Street Entrepreneurs private messenger, and I will read them out loud anonymously for Teka to answer live. Thank you, everyone, and I hope you enjoy this session.
Thanks, Juliana. Welcome, everyone. Yeah, as Juliana said, we're just concerned about the questions. Don't ask any personalized questions, and please don't ask any questions on a public Facebook page that may have legal implications. Just as a disclaimer, I'm giving you a general business overview. You know, you're not my client, I'm not your lawyer. Okay, here we go. I'm going to cover 3 general areas. Contracts. I'm going to give you 8 steps to do any contract: a lease, normal business contract, an employee contract. Then we're going to get into corporate business forms. And lastly, I'm going to get into some topics about aligning. As a business person, you need to make sure your personal legal documents, like your estate planning, is aligned with your operating agreement or buy-sell agreements and that sort of thing. Okay, in short, a contract is a deal. You agree to do something for someone, they agree to do something for you. You're each giving something up, and particularly if it includes money, the law applies. If you look closely at this, it says this is legal tender. So once one of these changes hands or agrees to change hands, the arm of the law reaches in between the two of you and you have a contract. So it's basically just legislation between 2 parties, and it's enforceable in a court of law. Hint: any contract that someone else hands to you is written in favor of them. It's about leverage. Now, every day we check some box, dealing with a big bank or dealing with, one of the big tech companies, and we don't really have any leverage to negotiation. We always just check, yes, we have read the fine print, blah, blah, blah. But any contract can be, I'm about to get into the next thing. Any contract can be, renegotiated. And the second thing is any deal can get done. Okay, any contract can be renegotiated. Doesn't matter who the parties are, and just about any conceivable arrangement you want to have with somebody can get done. If it can't, there's probably something ill-conceived about the arrangement itself. Okay, here are the ABCs to a contract. An offer: someone says, I will cut your lawn for $10. The acceptance: sure. Each is giving up something. One person has to labor and chop the grass. The other person has to hand over $10. So that's the consideration, is the giving up of each. So each side has to give something, do something, or refrain from doing something they have a right to do. For example, this happens in media and entertainment all the time. A studio or a record company might say, you can't record or you can't put out any albums for 6 months after we've promoted you, or something like that. So it includes refraining from doing something you have a right to do. That counts as consideration. Now, if there's a counter offer, that kills the initial offer. So you say to your neighbor, "I'll cut your grass for $10," and they reply, "I'll only pay $6." The deal is off. The offerer can walk away. But once the but if the other person had accepted the initial offer, you're on, and the arm of the law applies. Now, there are some defenses to the formation of a contract. There's genuinely a mistake. What you're doing is illegal. You're selling drugs. Lack of capacity, like perhaps one person, maybe they're in the hospital, sedated, or they're a child. One person is under duress. There's fraud, or what's called the statute of frauds, which means some things like real estate have to be done in writing. So now you got the ABC. This is like the equivalent of in literacy being able to read cat in the hat. Okay, you've got those are the basics of a contract. Whether you're buying a hamburger or negotiating a big intellectual property deal with your something you've done with your company. Those are the ABCs of what a contract is. Now I'm going to take you from grade 2 level up to about grade 4 level in the next dozen slides. So I'm going to go through 8 points to negotiate any contract with. Point number 1. You got to explain what is to be done and how well it is to be done. Okay, the duties and standards. Each side needs to know exactly what the other side's going to do and how well they're going to do it, what the standard of performance is. One thing I like to do if there's a legal client is to say, explicitly list what I will do, then what I would do for more money, and then list through a non-exclusive list of things I simply won't do that they may expect me to do. Okay, so say what you're going to do. Each side has to agree what the other's going to do and how well they're going to do it. Next, foreseeable issues. You got to define the terms and any foreseeable issues. You got to go through all the scenarios of what could go wrong, what could be misinterpreted, and make sure the other understands what you're going to do if when these curveballs happen. You also have to really elucidate the complicated parts of what looks simple. So, for example, when I've given this lecture a couple times with various Juliana groups, and I used the example with football because lots of people understand football. If you have in the NFL, you have a wide receiver catches the ball as he's going out of bounds. There's some contact from a defensive back, but not necessarily a lot. What are the rules? And people will generally say he's got to catch it with 2 feet in bounds. Well, what if he catches it with 1 foot and bobbles it, and then the other foot, and then he goes out of bounds? What if there's too much pressure from the defensive back? Well, then they're like, and I keep questioning him, and then you realize why you add so many semicolons in the answer and why the answer is so wordy and complicated. Because it's actually simple things are actually quite complicated when you look at all the scenarios that can go wrong or can be misinterpreted. So think comprehensively, but write concisely. Okay. And that, again, that is why contracts as well as legislation and regulations are so wordy. More on drafting. You are the expert, but the lawyer knows the rules. Okay, the lawyer sort of memorializes the deal, but you need to know what the business objectives are. Sometimes a contract requires you to acknowledge a certain legislation or regulations out there, other contracts. When you're writing it, when you and your lawyer are writing it, be precise, don't be fuzzy, use the active voice, not the passive voice, affirmative language, not negative language, and really explicitly go through every nuance of your reasoning, every nuance of what could go wrong if that, then this, then that, and so forth. You resist the temptation to summarize just for the sake of brevity. It'll cause more problems in the long run. Okay, again, go back to the rules of football example. The way football referees explain their penalties, very thorough ones, that's an excellent example of legalistic thinking. Okay, I use the piano example because I remember one of my best friends is a piano player, and he plays jazz piano at various clubs, and he has deals with other musicians. I'm going to get into this later on in the presentation, and deals with nightclubs. And you got to know, he may have a deal every Thursday night for the next 6 months. Well, he's not going to show up every Thursday night, but that assumption has to be known between both parties. So make sure that everyone knows within the industry standards, what is really being assumed here. And if not, you really got to spell that out. Okay. Each side really has to know how risky the deal is and what they're getting into. So beware of doing business with people who aren't necessarily that sophisticated, because they can come back and say, "Oh, you defrauded me." No, there was just an inherent risk in this contract. Next, pricing. Know how much money is to be paid and when and in what method. Okay. Control on property rights. Now on this one, this is the 5th of 8. I'm really going to go deep, and not only go deep, but go sideways into property. Because Juliana wanted me to talk about copyrights in images. So this can be the proverbial baby in the bathwater, particularly if you're dealing with software or you're writing books or something like that. Control, you got to know what your business's keystone asset is, what the cash cow is. Maybe it's one great idea that you put into a valuable formation, and your contract has to be built around controlling that. A couple times with Juliana's groups, I have shown a clip from the movie What's Love Got to Do with It? It's about a singer named Anna Mae Bullock. You all know who Anna Mae Bullock is. You're all very familiar with her music. And the scene from the movie is her divorce from her former co-star and abusive husband. And during the hearing, she says, "Your Honor, I have no money. He can have the house. He can have all the property. I only want one thing: the right to use my stage name." Her stage name is Tina Turner. Now, Tina Turner is now worth hundreds of millions of dollars. After her divorce, she was destitute. She was on welfare. She and her son were on welfare for a bit. But had she not had the right to use her stage name, she would never have earned all that money. So she went into that divorce hearing knowing what her key asset was, and that is her stage name. It's not money, it's not the house, it's not anything like that. Now let's go deeper into what is property conceptually. It's the right to control, to use, or to profit off of something. You also have obligations like paying taxes or cleaning your property or whatever. Article 1, Section 8 of the US Constitution basically says what Congress has the right to legislate. And this is what's called the Intellectual Property Clause. To promote the progress of sciences and the useful arts by securing for limited times to authors and inventors the exclusive right to their respective writings and discoveries. From that, we get the body of patent law and copyright law. Furthermore, the Commerce Clause, to regulate commerce with foreign nations and among the several states and with Indian tribes, we get trademark law. Patents deal with technology and things. I actually have my own business, and I was expecting this last week, but any day now, I'm to hear from my patent lawyer about filing a patent. I already have a provisional patent in. Copyright, you'll notice at the bottom of these slides, it says copyright Teka Thomas, Esquire. I didn't have to do that because, as I'll show you in the next slide, the copyright automatically applies, but that I still put that in there just to make sure no one steals what I wrote. And then trademarks deal with brands, so they're to avoid brand confusion, piracy, and that sort of thing. All right, copyrights in images. Once the video is just like writing, it automatically attaches by the force of law. So once you write your poem or your lyrics to your song or you write your manuscript to your book, you automatically own it. But if you want to, you can go to copyright.gov. The cost will either be $55. Sometimes you can get it down to $35. If you think that what you wrote is very valuable and it might be stolen or something like that, just to show people, just to show the world that you're serious about this, you can just simply register whatever it is you wrote at the US Copyright Office. And this is what's called fair use exceptions. If the purpose is, for education or public commentary, maybe it's a mashup, like you're using an image as part of someone's image, a whole bunch of images as part of a mosaic, or you're sampling a whole bunch of different people's music. If you're writing a product review, obviously you can use someone else's product if you're reviewing it. The nature of the copyrighted work, if it's fiction or nonfiction, it's hard to have fictional photographs, but is the amount of work that's copied and affecting the economic value of the copyrighted work. So I just told you I used a clip from live Hollywood, from an actual Hollywood movie, a clip I found on YouTube. Well, the amount of work is only like 2 minutes, and no one who saw that video is less likely to see the movie. In fact, I'm promoting the movie, so you're probably more likely to go rent the movie. It's sort of both fiction and nonfiction. It's a docudrama, right? So it's kind of in between. And then the purpose was educational. So that is a good example of fair use. And I didn't mention this with the writings, copyright law does not protect the idea. It protects the expression of the ideas. You can completely rewrite, the latest hot novel if you want to, but what copyright off really is about, in part, is just laziness, just plagiarism. Okay, back to contracts. So we've gone through, you got to write out the duties, you got to explain the ambiguities in the context, you got to explain the pricing and money, and then you really got to discuss control and property rights. Now, number 6, you got to have a clause talking about when this ends. How long is it? How do you get out of it? If your business is bought or you want to leave your business, your successor in interest, what obligations and rights do they have? If you die or are incapacitated, what happens? So you got to spell that out. Every contract, every good contract anyway, has a dispute resolution. Basically, if this deal goes sour, where are you going to sue? What court are you going to sue in, and where? If it's going to be in Washington, D.C. or somewhere else. And the 8th part basically means, point for point, go to the prior 7 and keep negotiating based on how much leverage you have. That's basically it. Have you thought out all the duties you're going to do and they're going to do, and the context and how you're going to pay them, how much, if you're going to pay them in installments or what. So that's basically the end of contracts. And again, if you have any contracts, just contract questions, contact Juliana, and she will write. I assume you have lots of the same questions, so she will write a composite. And at the end, when I'm done speaking, I'll answer all of those questions. Part 2 is corporate forms. So businesses don't need to be considered the same entity as you, the individual. If you start cutting grass and you get a reputation around your neighborhood as a really good grass cutter, at a certain point, you're gonna have a lot of business, and you're gonna realize, let me just have a separate entity for the business other than myself. And the most important thing is just the money flow. Make sure the accounting is separate. Now we're going to go into what the corporate forms are and which is the most advantageous for you. Factors include, what are your organization's goals and your core competency? How much personal liability you and the other top executives at your business want to have? What is the method and level of taxation? Go through this dichotomy of control versus accountability. The more of one, the more of the other. What kind of administrative and accounting burden are you willing to handle? The financing and scalability of your business idea. What is the keystone asset? And then how easy is the exit? How easy do you want to be able to withdraw from this and get your money out? Business succession, I'm going to get into this, but it's an important factor in deciding what kind of business you want to. I'm going to get into business succession in about 15 minutes, much deeper than this, but you got to consider, again, exit strategy, have succession plans if you die or are incapacitated. Make sure that your estate documents and marital agreements are in sync with your operating agreements, term sheets, and contracts. More on that later. And this is not the first time I'm going to say this, but no matter how rich or poor you are, getting married is the biggest business deal of your life. Okay. Sole proprietorships. It's all yours and it's all on you. Okay. You start cleaning houses and you get a good reputation. You start hiring people, and one of your employees steals something. Oh boy. Your reputation's gone. People can sue you, like your personal bank account. Okay. So just keep that in mind. A sole proprietorship basically means you have a money gaining operation, selling or doing something. Partnerships, they are very, very easy to fall into. The concept of joint and several liability, you just really got to know this. So basically what it means is, if you have a partner, a business partner, and they commit a crime or a tort in the course of your ongoing business. So if you have a delivery business and they're driving the truck to deliver something for the business and they run a red light and hit somebody, the victim can sue you. And since you apparently have not set up a formal business, they can sue your personal bank account and go after you. Okay, so joint and several liability means, again, each is liable for the torts of the other in pursuant to the business. And then afterwards, you can settle between the two of you who was really at fault and sort of in a second lawsuit. When you get into a business partnership, even if you don't go through, don't go downtown and file out the paperwork for an LLC or something, you need to have an operating agreement, which is like a prenup for a business. And if there are multiple partners, then you have essentially a polygamous prenuptial agreement for your business. The operating agreement, and I'm going to go into this later, it sets out all the terms of your buy-sell agreement. And I understand next week there's one of these lectures on buy-sell agreements. You'll probably have the initial skeleton of articles of incorporation, and just the operating agreement is, as the name says, all the terms of how this business is going to run and the level of ownership and responsibility for each. A C corporation is the best for scaling up. If you think you're going to become a big company and you're going to need a lot of financing, a C corp is the way to go. It has a lot of accounting and filing responsibilities. You're going to need to not only manage the company, but you're going to manage the politics of the board. And as I said, there's a lot of overhead. Generally, kind of the industry standard, what investors want is that you incorporate as a C corp in the state of Delaware. An S corp is basically a way for a growing company not to be taxed, and thus, instead of paying taxes, the company can grow more. The taxes are paid by the shareholders. So it's called pass-through taxation. So if they're up to 75 shareholders, a married couple counts as one shareholder, then you can, and you think it's advantageous to do this, you can organize as a subchapter S corporation. A benefit corporation is a for-profit that has kind of a do-goody mission. Now, the IRS doesn't yet recognize the distinction between a benefit corporation and a C corporation yet. In the states that have benefit corporations, what it really is it's a shield for the corporate officers and the board of directors against shareholder derivative suits. So basically, if a shareholder sues and says, hey, you're not maximizing profits, it's, it's a way for you to defend yourself in court to say, hey, look, the point of, we're doing this in an environmentally sensitive way or in a human rights sensitive way or whatever our shtick is. That's all it means. And then B Corp, quote unquote, is just a certification from this organization called B Labs that you meet certain standards. An LLP, this is kind of a dying out form of organization, but I'm putting it in this order for pedagogical reasons. At its simplest form, you have lots of investors called limited partners. There's one managing partner who takes more money because they're bearing the burden of management, and they have all the say and control. And then the limited partners don't have any control of the business, but assuming the business is well managed, or real estate investment trusts are often organized on this line. Venture capital funds are organized on these lines. The limited partners, their money grows over time. They just put their trust in the managing partner to grow their money. LLCs. Now, this is kind of a catch-all. This is probably what most of you are going to start off with. And it's just very flexible. It can be solo. It can be a bunch of partners. And if you're solo, then it's just part of your 1040 at tax time. If not, you'll just do a formal income statement. Hopefully a professional accountant will do one for you, and you file that with the IRS. They're very, very flexible. And here are the basic steps, whether you're starting a nonprofit or a for-profit. Here are just some three basic steps to growing what I call it is an organized operation. What is your core mission? 2, design a system to achieve that core mission. So like my friend, the piano player, he doesn't have like a formal company controlling musicians working for him. He just has kind of a network of backup musicians, and he has contracts with them, and then he gets the contracts with the various clubs. If you have a really cool piece of software and you think it's going to be really big, you're going to want to organize as a subchapter C corporation, because you're going to need to raise a lot of money, and the company's going to, and those investors are going to want the company to grow as fast as possible. So a C corp allows for a management style that will grow a company like that. If you're just a personal lifestyle business, an LLC might be good enough for you. If it's very labor intensive, like being a gardener, like being a solo lawyer or a graphic designer or something like that, an LLC or PLLC is fine. I kind of just jumped ahead. So figure out the core mission, design an organization to achieve that mission, and then whichever of the aforementioned legal forms is most apropos for that organization is the kind of legal form you choose. Now, there's no other place in the presentation to put the slide, so I'm just putting it here. As more business comes through the door, you're going to need help. So you're going to need to start hiring people. And I assume you're all familiar basically with a W-2 employee. W-2 is kind of like a full-time employee, and a 1099 is kind of outside help that you contract with. So think of W-2 employment as a vertical relationship. You're on top of them in the hierarchy, and you control how they work. Control being the operative word. 1099s are really horizontal relationships. They're outsourcing. You contract out what is to be done, but you do not control how they get done. So as it was explained to me once, and a lady that I pay to do professional services for me, I can't tell her, I need this done by the end of the month, and if you're going to take a vacation, clear it with me first. That's a big no-no for a 1099 hire, okay? You can't control their work schedule or how they do their jobs or what their daily schedule is. 1099s look attractive, but when you can't control your employees to your own efficiency, in the final analysis, it's not necessarily more efficient way to run your business. when you hire a 1099, have a statement of work in writing, with those payment and delivery times. And the law hammers employers who abuse 1099s. If a 1099 says that they were treated like a W-2, they get treble damages, they get, and as well as back benefits that they should have had. So what a judge will look at in those 1099 lawsuits is the main factor is how much control did you have of the day-to-day, hour-to-hour work of the person. Did you provide them with the office, the tools, and the resources to do their work? If so, that'll nudge a judge in the direction of, yeah, this was a W-2 situation. Same thing. Are they fully dependent on you for income? Are they essentially working full time? Again, that tends towards W-2. And then do they represent themselves to the public as working for your company? For example, do you mandate that they wear a uniform that has your company logo on it? Another thing tending towards a W-2. So your initial, consult an employment lawyer before you start hiring for a whole bunch of reasons. But you can initially hire 1099s. Again, they can't be that efficient initially because you can't control how they work. But oftentimes that's the only way to start working when you're not 100% sure the business is going to take off. But for now, you could use a little more help around the business. And questions on organizational forms, please send them into Juliana. I will now drink some hot water to keep my vocal cords warm. Again, keep your questions concise and generic and on point with the points I've raised. Please do not ask personalized questions in a public forum. Okay, doing well on time here. Okay, now linking your private legal forms with your business legal forms. This is really, really important for business owners because you have a really complicated set of property, okay? Marital agreements. Very controversial to talk about. It's a very personal thing, but it's something you really need to think about and talk about if you're planning to get married, or even a post-nuptial agreement after you've gotten married. So, as I like to say, whether you flip burgers for minimum wage or you flip companies for millions of dollars, getting married is the biggest business deal of your life. Your spouse is your biggest number one business partner. And if you've had multiple marriages, that makes things all the more complicated. All right. As any relationship counselor will tell you, all couples, you need to talk about money. You need to talk about the lifestyle, the standard of living you each expect, how much work you each expect, what your income trajectory you think is going to be, if you think you're going to go back to school, all that kind of stuff. You need to talk about very early on once you sort of agree that you're going to get married. Think of a prenup as simply putting those very necessary conversations in a written form. If you have kids from a prior relationship, it is irresponsible not to have a prenuptial agreement. They are very emotionally wrenching, and I'm not necessarily recommending them for everyone, but particularly if you're going into a marriage with a child and you have an asset, you really need to have a prenuptial agreement, because you cannot, if the marriage doesn't go well, you cannot completely disinherit your spouse from your will. Basically, if you have an estranged spouse and there are other people in your life that you want to provide for more than your estranged spouse, you have to get divorced. You can't. So, just these are things to think about when you're getting married and when you have a business. Okay. It's all about syncing your business documents with your personal documents. So the word wills shouldn't be on the screen yet. I couldn't figure out how to get rid of there. But on one side, on the left side, you have your your business documents, right? So that's your operating agreements, your articles of incorporation, which is like the constitution for your company. The term sheets, those are the terms with the investors showing how big a slice of the pie they have at any given funding round, contracts that you have with everybody, and then your business succession plan. And then on the right side, you have your personal legal documents, your wills, your trusts, your bequeaths from like certain bank accounts, prenuptial agreements, and then any life insurance that you may have already taken out that already names beneficiaries that don't have to go through probate. What I'm about to give you, I'm not about to give you counsel, but more a strategy for you to prepare for you to walk into your estate lawyer's office and your long-term financial planner's office, okay? So listen carefully. Tax laws are changing. They changed big time in 2017. If there is a partisan change on Pennsylvania Avenue in November, or effectively January of next year, as I think there will be, then more tax laws will change. And they can do it very easily with 51 votes in a reconciliation bill, the Senate can. All right, no business is the same. No family structure is the same. No relationship is the same. If you look through your cell phone at the last 10 people you text messaged, each of those 10 people has a different relationship with you, okay? And everyone's agenda is unique. So here's step one of my little plan here. If you ask yourself the question, if you had no estate plan and you got run over by a truck this afternoon, what would happen to the business and how much would the business be valued at? Okay, what's the value of the business and who would control it and how would it be, handled? Okay, so you write that down. Write down that number. And you don't have to do it necessarily right now, but over the coming days and weeks, you really need to do this. Methodically, one by one, describe, the agenda, list and describe the agenda of each of your family members, and then repeat that for, I'm getting ahead of myself here. Repeat that for all your business partners, top employees, your investors, your business associates. List all of them, and then list what you think their agenda is, and list also how they relate to everyone else. So it's going to get really complicated. Not everybody wants to or is capable of functioning in the business, particularly in a licensed profession. If I marry a non-lawyer, obviously she cannot take over my law practice. If I had law partners and I had a non-lawyer spouse, if I died, we'd have to have, some kind of a buy-sell agreement to figure out how they would buy out my share. So that was the people. Now the stuff. Now I wrote this a few months ago, this part of the slideshow. Think 2 to 5 years about your business. The last 2 months has just radically changed the entire economy. There's not a single business in America who does not have a very different outlook than they did 8 weeks ago. But still, is your business going to need capital? Are people going to need more training, expansion? How is the industry changing? Are you going to pivot to new products? Now think about all of your family assets. So those are your business assets. Now think of the family assets. That beach house, do you want it to be remodeled or you're simply going to put that needed roof on? Jewelry, bank accounts, securities. What kind of interest do you have elsewhere? And is it a controlling interest or are you merely just a limited partner? And which assets are of a size and of a nature that's going to endure or which are just going to kind of fritter away? So historically, 4% is how much the annual payout of a fund is. Interest rates are a little low right now, but so $1 million would yield about $40,000. Now, if you have, say, 4 heirs, $10,000 a year, that's real money, okay? $100,000 and you have 4 heirs, you might as well just divide that up into 25 each, okay? So not only the nature, if it's cash cash is very easily divisible, unless it's a lot of cash, which can throw off other money in a meaningful amount to people. So, you gotta make that distinction with your money and then your stuff. If it's a house, that's, you don't want to divide up a house. If it's a beach house that people use regularly, maybe Airbnb it part of the year, maybe, you know, each family member gets it a few weeks a year, something like that. Now you got to get the right stuff to the right people. So we're combining the last two slides here. So, you just game out all these scenarios and you calculate the math from all these scenarios. What's it going to cost? What are the opportunity costs? What are the trade-offs? And, the main point of the estate plan is getting the right stuff to the right people that you want. It's called your will. Okay. You will this to happen. Okay. Or you entrust it to an executor for the benefit of someone. Okay. Wills and trusts. And just remember the maxim that being equal does not necessarily mean being equitable. Okay. You can give, to your three kids, a third, a third, a third. But if one of your kids maybe has a special needs grandchild, or their kid, your grandchild, or, they fell on hard times or something, maybe you'll give a little bit more, and that's kind of the equitable thing to do. Now for the really, it's the part that's both emotionally and intellectually very, very hard, is to compare, that initial number from dying intestate from all the scenarios, whether you give the business to this person or that person, you give the beach house to that kid or that kid, and what the reaction of everybody else will be to any given decision you might make. Now, and this is the real part. I just really want you to zone in right here on these next few points on this slide. What might be the optimal tax strategy may really harm your family relations. Just if you only pursue the optimal tax strategy, that may fray the relations amongst your kids or between your spouse and your kids or something like that. Okay. If you are only focused on pursuing as much family control of the business, that, maybe that'll hurt long-term capitalization. Maybe investors don't like your kids and don't want to entrust the company to your kids. They like you, they trust you running the business, but not your kids. So if your sole focus is simply having the kids run the business for the sake of having the kids run the business, perhaps that's not in the business's best interest. Financial support to your widow or widower may harm, the relationships with employees within the business if they don't like your spouse. So these are just all examples of things, and you got to figure out what you value the most. Okay. I'm just giving you got to figure out what you value the most, and then how is everybody else going to react to that, financially or in relationship wise. Okay. And so this will take days and weeks to just do the math and just look within you. No expert can talk you through this. Okay. You got to look within your heart and just figure this out for yourself. The basic tools, wills, they set out what you want. They're generally best for assets that can be easily divided and are not necessarily big in nature. The process is slow and it goes and public. It's public. It goes through probate court. So the whole world can know about, what you have. Trusts, there are many types of trusts, but it's a way to pass family, perhaps within your lifetime, your wealth within your lifetime, and it avoids probate. So remember how you can go into a business as a sole, there's an analogy here. You're in business as a sole proprietorship, and then you realize, okay, you need a LLC shell to protect yourself. Well, just to kind of think of a trust as kind of analogous to that. You're creating this new legal entity, and you're passing your property into that legal entity that you control during your lifetime. And so it doesn't have to go through probate. Probate means proof. He doesn't have to go through probate because you've already passed the property to the control of this new entity called a trust, and the trust is going to live past you. And that's best for amounts of money or types of things that will endure. Okay. Again, as I said, $1 million that can endure because you can make money off of $1 million, meaningful money off of $1 million. If it's less than $100,000, you probably just ought to just divide it up and give it to people. Perhaps you'll figure that out for yourself. Okay, prenups and postnups. Again, these are contracts with your spouse, as to how to divide the assets if there's a divorce. Life insurance, the premiums that are paid out, upon your death, there can be whole or just for certain term, certain time frame. And then bequeaths, those are, bank accounts. You can put your certain kids or whatever that you want to get the money in the bank account. Now then, I'm just going to kind of repeat the steps you got to do in the next few weeks. Oh, actually, that's a slide headline. Now you have a strategy. When you go to a estate planning lawyer, you go to an insurance dealer, you go to a financial planner, they're all going to try and sell you their most expensive service, and products. Now you have a strategy, and you can control that conversation. This is going to be based on the tax brackets at the time. As I said, it is quite possible that 12 months from now, the estate tax rates can change, and that'll change your strategy. And now, as I said, you have a plan. Explain why to the family, and then tell your business associates. If it's coming from you, it'll help your business save a lot of jealousy-driven litigation. The emotion of jealousy makes lawyers very rich, okay? And if you can, imprint your will and explain why you're doing this to your family, that'll help keep relations with your family and your former business associates much better when you pass away. So this is just a checklist again of what you need to do. List every person who thinks they might be an heir. Did you promise your friend at your kid's christening when you became a godparent, yeah, I'll take care of this kid? You got to just list everyone who thinks they might be an heir, and describe who they are and how they fit into the family dynamic. Repeat the same thing for all your business associates. Then, so that's the people. Then list the stuff. Then link the right people to the right stuff, and calculate the value and cost of every scenario, linking people to different people to different stuff. How is everyone going to react if you give control to your competent but not good people skilled kid? Okay, are people going to like that? And then you just got to look inside your own value system and decide on a strategic list of trade-offs, and then take that to your lawyer and financial advisors. And yeah, okay. So questions. I said, don't pose any personalized questions to Juliana. And before, as I'm taking the questions, I'm very proud of this slide. You're all CEOs now, and these are all lists of general topics that every CEO does that touches the law. You all are in charge of organizational efficiency. You're all in charge of marketing and sales. You're all in charge of mitigating risk, and you're all in charge of negotiating deals. So, Juliana, fire away.
Awesome. Thank you, Tika, so much for that great workshop. So the first question is, I have to shut down my business. I have an LLC. How can I protect my home? Currently, it is being used as a guarantee for a business loan.
Okay. I take it there. Well, I have to ask this person's in debt. The simple answer, I think it's relatively easy to shut down an LLC. The loan, I think that's going to be between you and the bank anyway. But if you're going out of business and you want to shut down the LLC, I think I think dissolving an LLC is a pretty simple thing to do at downtown at the DCRA or whatever jurisdiction you're calling from. I take it you're probably a single member LLC, and the bank just is treating you as a person. So I think the issue with whatever you might owe the bank against your house is separate from that. But you can dissolve an LLC, I think, pretty easily.
Awesome. If I cut hair using a face mask during quarantine, can I be held liable?
I think so. I mean, I'm getting about every day. CLEs are continuing legal education classes, titled COVID-19 and the law, liability and insurance, or I'm getting all bombarded. We're really trying to figure this out, but yeah, if someone can really make the case that you did not handle your barbershop in a clean way, that you held yourself out. If you could, they'll say, look, you opened up your business, you held yourself out as clean, and how they're going to prove they got it from you and not, some other touch some door handle. I don't know, but yeah, you're potentially, you can be sued and someone can make a case against liability, again, for negligence or something like that. Yeah.
Awesome. Is there a point to getting a patent if I can't protect it? In other words, I don't have money for litigation. And also, can I patent technology?
Patents are for technology. One thing is, I didn't mention, software is usually copyrighted because it's just, you write software. Although if you come up with a inventive business process if the software does something, a new type of business process, that you can patent a business process. Now you're asking something that every inventor goes through. Should I bother with a patent? If you don't, it literally, there's as you can find, there's something called a provisional patent, which is you file something, nobody sees it, and for a year you can say patent pending, and that the cost was under $200 for that. That's one option if you think you can in the next year get investors to support you. There's a lot of strategy that goes with patents. Coca-Cola famously does not have a patent because patents are public, and they don't think they're making they made a deal. They made a business decision, a bet, over a century ago, that no one is ever going to figure out our formula, and no one necessarily has. So, there are sometimes reasons to not have a patent at all. So, if you think there's look into provisional patents, and that'll give you a year to sort of protect the idea and for an affordable cost, and it'll give you a year to get some financial backing.
Awesome. What if I'm hiring a full-time person for 4 to 6 months? Would they need to be a 1099 or a W-2?
That's sort of really in that gray area. I can't give a definitive answer to that. You really have to ask yourself, in order for hiring this person, are you really going to need to control how this person does their work? The more I'm thinking about it, maybe just say, look, this is just explicitly say this is a 180-day project, or maybe do it by dollar amount for up to 180 days, and maybe have a balloon payment at the end if so they know how much money they're going to get, and call it a 1099. But just understand you can't prescribe very much about how they go about doing their job, and not being able to to control and marshal your employees in the way you need them marshaled is going to limit the efficiency and your effectiveness in marshaling them. So you can probably get away with the 1099 for that time frame, but again, you can pretty much just say in a statement of work what is to be done, and if it's done in 120 days or 180 days, you'll get the same amount of money, but then there's going to be issues of how well it was done. So it's certain standards of performance are going to have to be uh, uh, written out. So again, there is no definitive answer. Okay, but yeah, I'd probably say at 1099, it would be basically, this is the project that needs to be done. This is the amount of money, and fill in a few blanks. But again, you cannot control how well, or you cannot control their day-to-day life.
Okay. Even if it's for a short amount of time.
She said 180 days. More than that, you may want to ask an employment lawyer or an HR expert on that. But yeah, I'd say 100 up to 180 days is you're probably okay. But again, the trade-off is you're not going to be able to make them efficient workers because you cannot control a 1099. Yeah.
Okay. So the next question is, I was told I need to incorporate in DC if I'm raising venture capital. I'm currently incorporated in DC as an LLC. Also, is it hard to switch from LLC to a C Corp, and which costs less?
An LLC would cost less. Yeah, because I'm looking into, um, making something similar. It would be Delaware, but yeah, I was just told just dissolve the corporation and stand up dissolve the LLC, stand up a new corporation. You're going to need, I forgot how many people need to be on the board, but there's going to need to be a secretary and a CEO and a treasurer.
I think it's 3.
It's going to, every state it's going to be different.
In Delaware, it's 3. Why okay. Delaware? Why do investors want to
their laws favor corporations? It's very efficient. Although they have the judges who are used to handling those cases, so it's just sort of the industry standard that you incorporate in Delaware.
Got it. So one final question, so we can end on time. So I need to renegotiate my lease. Because of the coronavirus, I'm not seeing any sales. I'm a brick and mortar. Do you have any advice on how to do that?
You're in very good company. Approach them head on and just say, here's my situation. And, in that situation, make sure that you style yourself as that the landlord is better off dealing with you as a partner than certainly as a litigant or so just say, hey, if you approach them and say, open your books, this is my situation, this ain't my fault, and they know that too. This isn't my fault. And here's maybe a potential payment schedule based on the amount of money I made in April and the first week of May or something like that.
Awesome. Okay, I have one last question. We can answer it in a second. I need to get rid of an investor. I didn't have a protection clause in my buy-sell agreement. Any advice?
A buy-sell agreement, or that sounds more like just term sheets.
The individual said buy-sell. They could be referencing something else.
And what clause is missing in the buy-sell?
They just said, I need to get rid of an investor. I don't have a protection clause.
Well, you're going to need to have someone assess the value of the company then and the value of the company now. And you're going to, I mean, that's going to be step one is to know the numbers. If it's just a relationship thing, that's broken down. You know, yeah, at this point, you're just going to need to talk to a lawyer. But I think the first step though is just to run the number, assess the value of the company right now and the value of the company at the time they put the money in.
Got it. Well, thank you so much, Tika, for being here with us.
Yes.
This
Maybe.
is another digital workshop with street entrepreneurs. We're doing these workshops weekly for as long as the quarantine lasts to answer many of the requests we have received via email, phone calls, or our COVID-19 intake form. We hope that these workshops will help you stay afloat, continue to thrive, and grow in this time and beyond. We're here for you. Just as a reminder, Street Entrepreneurs is a 501c3 nonprofit. All of our workshops are donation based. You can donate as little as $1 or as much as you like. And all of the money is going to helping entrepreneurs who don't qualify for federal and local aid. Thank you, everyone, for being here. And I will.
Can I just add one thing?
Yes, please.
Just the key to the practice of law in one word is just documentation. In one sentence, it's documenting evidence to tell your side of the story. And any area of law, that's what the practice of law comes down to. So, like the individual who needs to get rid of an investor, whatever evidence there is, particularly the value of the business or any evidence of their misfeasance or malfeasance or whatever, gather that not only gather it, but in a way that tells a story.
Awesome. Thank you. And just so you guys know, I keep all questions confidential. So you can keep asking and I'll do my best.
Keep them generic, actually. Don't personalize the questions too much, but you certainly keep them confidential and certainly don't put anything on the Street Entrepreneurs Facebook page. Please.
Of course not. Of course not. Remember, private message us, and if there is a topic you want to request, you can always write us. Bye, Tika. Thank you for being here with us today.
It was fun. Thank you.
Ciao.
All right.